What's up, everybody? It's your girl Toyzilla, and welcome to this episode of Toyzilla's Book Club. Reading is so much fun! Yay! All right, gonna be the new Reading Rainbow. I don't know. That guy is amazing. If only. All right, so I was reviewing some videos and I seriously wanted to apologize to y'all. Last time I found out that basically my background music was overpowering my actual voice on the stream. Whoops! My bad. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is redo chapters 2 through 4 of our book, The Looking Glass Wars, written by Frank Bedor. Now, I went ahead and posted the first video up on YouTube. Actually, I posted the second video as well before I went back and looked at them because I was like, I was there. It was good, but again, me trying new things with the audio. I apologize. You forgive me? Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. I will review this video and make sure you guys like it. Tell me what other books you might want me to read as well. See if I got it. Maybe send it to me. Who knows? Alright, let's go ahead with this. Chapter 2. 2 days into their return trek through outer Wilderness, King Nolan and his men urged their spirit danes at a gallop along a narrow mountain ridge. Four-legged creatures with bodies that looked vaguely bulldogish from the front and tapered to a thin tailless rear end, spirit danes had flat faces with slow-blinking eyes, fist-sized nostrils, and a quizzical mouth. They were not the fastest means of getting around Wonderland, but they proved the most efficient mode of travel to and from Borderland, being the only creatures capable of carrying a man, as well as gifts of wine and crystal, while making decent time over the irregular terrain of outer Wildebeest. This had not been a journey King Nolan desired to make. He had done it for the good of the queendom. A last-minute negotiation with King Arch of Borderland to establish an alliance between their two nations against Red. It was, of course, Genevieve's rightful place to conduct all negotiations, but she had thought it prudent to send her husband in her stead. Borderland was a kingdom. King Arch didn't believe in queendoms. The seat of power, he often proclaimed, was no place for a female. King Arch greeted Nolan as if the mere sight of him brought on fatigue. "Why should I form an alliance?" he asked after Nolan had just explained the reasons. "Red doesn't dare attack Borderland." "Because we're neighbors, Arch. If Red does take control of Wonderland, she's likely to grow more ambitious and look to Borderland as her next target." "Oh, I think I can defend myself against any female, even without an alliance." Arch snapped his fingers and a shapely courtesan emerged from behind a glittering curtain to massage his shoulders. "Besides, it rather goes against my principles, partnering with the queendom. I don't want the peculiar ways of your nation influencing Borderland's female population. The last thing I need is the seeds of some so-called greater purpose being planted in their feminine heads, as if they should do more with their lives than is required for their marital administrations. I'd be more concerned about the influence a Red-controlled Wonderland would have on your entire population," said King Nolan. King Arch made a sound deep within his throat, a doubtful grunt. I think that would go something like, "Huh." I don't know. What y'all think? "Frankly, Nolan, I don't have the highest regard for you, letting yourself be bossed around by your wife as you do." King Nolan did not feel, nor had he ever felt, bossed around by Genevieve. He loved his wife, in part because of her strength, her estimable handling of the very responsibilities that Arch thought should fall only on a man's shoulders. To Nolan, Nothing could compare to the love of his kind, strong-willed queen. So, Arch said, you'd receive military support to help defend against your enemies, and what would I get? What benefits would the people of Borderland be able to expect as a result of this proposed nation coupling? I am prepared to offer you crystal mining rights within our borders, twice yearly payments of 1,000,000 howlite gemstones, and the use of our military should the need for it ever arise. King Arch stood. The meeting was over. I'll consider it and send word of my decision in the next week or so. Eager to arrive back at Hart Palace in time for Alice's birthday, Nolan made a race to the journey with his men, riding at full speed without stopping for rest or food. They were still half a day's ride away. The mountain ridge was far behind them now, and they galloped across the dusty plain at the crest of a hill, with Hart Palace visible on the horizon. Let me redo that sentence. At the crest of the hill with Hart Palace, at the crest of the hill with Hart Palace visible on the horizon, Nolan reined in his spirit Dane. I feel like one of y'all should draw a spirit Dane and send it in. I would very much like to see what y'all come up with. A gust of wind carried with it, or so he imagined, for he was quite a distance from the palace, the sounds of revelry, music, and laughter. His men came to stop beside him. What is it, my lord? She'll never forgive me for missing the party. I think the queen would forgive you anything, my lord. Not the queen. The princess. Oh, with her, you'll have trouble. The men laughed. With Alice, King Nolan would indeed have trouble, but it would be a pleasant sort of trouble. Even in her pouts, he thought his daughter a delightful creature. Hey-ya! With a refreshed sense of urgency, the king prodded his spirit Dane onward toward home and family. Chapter 3. Bibwood Hart gathered together books and papers in preparation for his charge's lessons the next day. Now that she had reached her 7th birthday, Alice would begin her formal training to become queen. And being a queen isn't easy, muttered Bibwood Hart. The position comes with tremendous responsibilities. One has to study law and government and ethics and morality. One must train the imagination for the promotion of peace and harmony and the precepts of white imagination, because black imagination is not what anybody wants at all. Oh no. Again, I don't like the wording of that, but we shall continue. And if that isn't enough, there's the looking glass maze to get through. Bibwood Hart, alone in the library at Hart Palace, recited from an ancient Wonderland text. In Queendom Sparamus, a unique looking glass maze exists for every would-be queen. The maze must be successfully navigated by the would-be queen if she is to reach her imagination's full potential and thus be fit to rule. The tutor returned to his usual tone. And where the looking glass maze is, only the caterpillars know. Mr. Bibwood Hart was an albino 7 feet tall, with bluish-green veins pulsing visibly beneath his skin, and ears a bit large for his head. Ears so sensitive that he could hear someone whispering from 3 streets away. He was rather intelligent, but he had the habit of talking to himself, which more than a few Wonderlanders found strange, particularly members of the Diamond, Spade, and Club families, not one of whom had forgiven him for his decades-long schooling of the Hart daughters as opposed to their own. Not that Bibwood paid much attention to what others thought of him. He talked to himself because there weren't many people as learned as him, and he liked to talk to learned people. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Bibwood threw open a pair of doors leading to the royal gardens, and the chorus of voices might have become painfully loud to his finicky ears if it had been any other song to any other princess. But he found nothing too much when it was an appreciation of Alice. Among the assembled guests being led in song by the garden sunflowers, tulips, and daisies, Bibwood spied various members of the suit families. He bowed to the Lady of Diamonds when he caught her eye, and General Doppelganger, commander of the Royal Army, who suddenly split in two and became the twin figures of Generals Doppel and Ganger, so as to lend two voices to the song instead of one. Bibwood bowed to the blue caterpillar, that oracle of oracles, sages of sages, wisest of the wise, sitting curled in the corner of the garden, puffing on his hookah while a ganook, a small creature with a penguin's body and an old man's wrinkled face, waddled on his back. Waddling is an underappreciated art, Bibwood heard the ganook say to the caterpillar. Say, let me have a puff of that. Him, grumbled the caterpillar, who never shared his pipe with Canooks, even on the happy occasion of Alice Hart's birthday. Smoking's bad for you. It is indeed a special day when a caterpillar comes all the way from the Valley of Mushrooms to partake of the celebration, Bibwood Hart muttered. Watching two spirit dames pull a giant cake toward Alice, a host of tuttle birds glowing and flapping their wings in place of candles. Next to the birthday girl stood the queen, and behind her, Hatter Madigan, leading member of the Wonderland's elite security force known as the Millenary, and the queen's personal bodyguard. Carrying the backpack common among millenary men, wearing a long coat and bracelets, and the top hat he took off only in times of violence, he alone in the crowd remained stoic, alert. The song ended. The guests applauded, and Queen Genevieve said, "Make a wish, Alice." Besides wishing that father had never gone on his trip, Alice declared, "I wish to be queen for a day." Her mother's crown lifted into the air and floated toward her head. The guests laughed, all except Hatter Madigan, who never laughed. "Hatter Madigan," sighed Bibwood, "even you should relax sometimes and enjoy yourself." "You'll be queen soon enough," Genevieve said to her daughter. The queen's imagination was not exactly weak, and the crown floated back onto her head. Alice noticed Bibwood standing at the library doors and decided to have a little fun. It was the least she could do until she found Dodge. She whispered, "Do you want some cake, Bibwood Hart?" The tutor nodded, and she brought him a slice of cake on an edible chocolate plate. That sounds good. The tutor nodded. Yeah. "Happy birthday to you," she said. "It's raisin butterscotch with peanut butter, marshmallows, and gummy wads. It's the best." Bibwood stared at the cake. "Yes, well, thank you, Alice. But I'm afraid you won't be so nice to me after we begin our lessons tomorrow." "I won't need any lessons," Alice said. "I'll just imagine that I know everything, and then I will. So you won't have to give them to me." Bibwood picked at the cake, examining it, squinting at it. "My dear," he said, "you can't imagine everything because you don't know everything there is to imagine. That's precisely where the lessons come in. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I taught your grandmother and your mother when they were your age, and yes, I did try to teach the woman who shall not be named, namely your Aunt Red, but we won't go into that. Not at all sure that it was the right thing to do." Bibwood put a bit of cake into his mouth. He chewed once, twice, but something was amiss. The stuff in his mouth felt like it was moving. Alice started to laugh. Bibwood spit out the half-chewed cake into the bump of his hand and saw that it wasn't cake at all. It turned into a handful of wormies. "Got you," Alice shouted and ran away. The wormy prank hadn't been nice, not nice in the least, but Bibwood was willing to forgive. Alice was young. She needed to be taught. She might remind him of Red in certain things, but he was confident that she wouldn't grow up to be like her. He wouldn't let that happen. Besides, he couldn't blame Alice for needing to occupy herself somehow. There were hardly any children her age at the palace. He cast a last gaze about the gardens. The blue caterpillar had slithered off somewhere. Frog, the palace's internal messenger, was hopping about in his finest clothes, no doubt longing for some guest to entrust him with a message for another guest. Generals Doppel and Ganger were again in one body, and they, or rather he, General Doppelganger, was conversing with Sir Justice Anders, head of the palace guardsmen. Hatter Madigan, following the Queen like a protective shadow, remained as unexpressive as ever. Bibbert retired to the library, where picture books from Alice's earliest youth sat on shelves next to a 10-volume chronicle of the Civil War, written from various points of view. The card soldiers who fought on the front lines, members of the chessmen militia, General Doppelganger and his sergeants, even Queen Genevieve herself. It came complete with lists of those killed in each of the battles and explanations of the strategies that had called for the sacrifice of Wonderlander lives. Bibbert took down the first volume of the Chronicle and set it with the other books and papers he collected for Alice's lessons. The book contained a catalogue of atrocities committed by Red: torture, the slaughtering of prisoners, mass graves. The tutor had always viewed Red's fall into the diabolical as his fault, a failure in her education. It's never too soon for a future queen to become familiar with the uglier contingencies of ruling a land, he said to himself. Chapter 4. King Nolan and his men left outer wildebeestia behind. They passed through a narrow stretch of the everlasting forest and were stampeding through the eastern edge of Wondertropolis, the most rural area of the capital, home to farmers and those favoring the quiet country life, when their spirit danes stopped and reared up on their hind legs, agitated. Speckled across the tranquil landscape, looking harmless and partly camouflaged by the day's lengthening shadows, were Red's undealt card soldiers lying flat one on top of another, each deck 52 soldiers thick, awaiting orders. Red's decks are stacked. So whatever King Arch decided, it would no longer matter. Wonderland didn't have the luxury of waiting for his answer. "We have to warn the palace," said King Nolan. One of his men removed a looking-glass communicator from his saddlebag and began tapping out a coded message on his keyboard. If the soldier had had time to hit the send button, his message would have appeared on a crystal viewer in the security oversight room of Hart Palace. But with a sound akin to the metal blades of scissors rapidly opening and closing, an unseen deck hidden in nearby underbrush fanned out and surrounded the king and his men. The air filled with adrenaline-induced war cries from Red soldiers, agony-infused moans from the throats of King Nolan's men. The looking-glass communicator fell against a rock and shattered, its owner dead before the device hit the ground. Oh, no. The Wonderlanders were outnumbered 5-1. At the center of the skirmish, slashing his sword this way and that, was King Nolan. Still atop his trusted spirit dame, when a figure in a scarlet cloak passed through the fighting, untouched, and stabbed him through the heart with her pointed scepter. "My queen," he moaned, slumping into death, blood leaking from the corners of his mouth. "My queen." Oh, goodness. Can y'all just imagine? Whew. All right. So that was redoing the parts, chapter 2 through 4 from last time. Again, now that you guys can clearly hear me and what I've had to say, if you're enjoying yourself, I'd like you to go ahead and send in some artwork. You can post it under the YouTube channel or send it right here in the suggestion box. Or if that doesn't work, I'll set up something. Y'all let me know what's happening. I just like to see what's happening and get your minds working while we spend this time together. So again, we'll be back again tomorrow with another couple of chapters, or just maybe one. We'll see how to split it up as the timing goes. But I hope you guys are as enthralled as I am to get through this book. It just seems really good. I love fractured fairy tales. So until next time, I'd like you guys to go ahead and like, subscribe if you haven't already. And remember, if you like what you see, turn on your PC and view it. Goodbye now. Be safe. This has been your girl Toyzilla signing out.